Welcome to this explainer. Look, we're jumping right in today because we have got to talk about the massive disconnect between those rosy financial headlines you see everywhere and the cold, hard reality of Americans' retirement accounts. We're tearing into the data to show you exactly where you stand.
To set the stage here and to validate why you or folks you know might be feeling so incredibly squeezed lately, get a load of this number. Thanks to inflation just totally outpacing paychecks, a family of four needs nearly 140 grand a year now just to survive. Honestly, the costs are staggering, and it's putting immense pressure on our ability to stash anything away for the future.
So here's our roadmap for this explainer. First, we'll uncover the headline lie, then the actual savings crisis. Next, we're looking at savings targets by age, and finally, how to catch up.
All right, part one, the headline lie, skewed data and hidden truths.
So there's this recent Vanguard report analyzing nearly 5 million real retirement accounts. And on the surface, it claims we're in a retirement revolution, bragging about an average 401k balance of $167,000. Sounds great, right? But wait, that headline is basically a math trick. Remember how an average actually works? It just dumps everyone's balances into a pot and divides them up. But if you look at the true median, meaning the actual person standing right in the dead center of the data, that typical American only has $44,000 saved.
This perfectly captures why relying on averages in personal finance is just, well, it's a lie. The source material put it perfectly. If I'm in a room with Elon Musk, our average net worth is closer to $550 million. You see the problem, right? The data gets so heavily skewed by a tiny sliver of multimillionaires at the very top that it completely distorts reality for the everyday worker. And it gets even more concerning when you drop this stat into the mix. A full 40% of Americans have zero retirement savings. I mean, absolutely none in any account whatsoever. So when the media is out there popping champagne over record 401k balances, they're conveniently ignoring nearly half the country. Moving on to part two, the actual savings crisis, dwindling safety nets.
This really exposes a much deeper financial fragility. Because look, the retirement problem, it doesn't magically appear at age 65. It starts right now with everyday cash flow. The U.S. personal savings rate, which is just the cash people have left over after paying their bills, has been steadily collapsing month after month. It dropped from 4.3% in January down to 3.6% in February and hit a really scary 2.6% currently. To put that in perspective, the 30-year average is 5.7%. So we're sitting at less than half the historical norm. It's literally the lowest we've seen since right before the 2008 Great Financial Crisis.
And since the median American household is sitting on only about 8 grand in their combined checking and savings, there's just no buffer, no safety net. As a result, a record 6% of participants are actually taking 401k hardship withdrawals right now. Think about that. People are literally borrowing from their future selves, eating those massive penalties just to cover present-day emergencies like a broken-down car or a surprise medical bill.
So how do we reconcile all this? Well, economists call this a K-shaped economy. And this concept brilliantly explains the bizarre contradiction we're seeing on the news. It shows exactly how you can have the stock market shooting up 28%. At the exact same time, everyday savings are just nosediving. The folks at the top of that K are thriving. Their assets are booming. Meanwhile, everyone else on that downward slope is getting completely squeezed by the cost of rent, groceries, and insurance.
Okay, part three, savings targets by age, expectation versus reality.
Now, I want you to treat this table as your ultimate cheat sheet. Let's really break this down together. In that middle column, we've got the golden standard benchmarks. Basically, financial experts will tell you that by age 30, you should have 1 times your annual salary saved up. By 40, you want 3 times your salary, and by 50, 6 times. Now, if you're aiming for that ultra-elite top 1%, look at the next column. A 25 to 34-year-old would need about $365,000, and a 40-year-old needs over $1.2 million. But here is the real kicker. Look what happens when we contrast those golden goals against the sobering reality of the actual median savings on the far right.
Let's zoom in on a specific demographic to see how this plays out. Take Americans aged 45 to 54. According to that golden standard benchmark we just talked about, they're supposed to have roughly 450 grand saved up by now. But their actual median savings? Just $87,000. That gap between expectation and reality is absolutely massive.
And it's a similar story for folks nearing retirement, those in the 55 to 64 bracket.
Their median balance is only $95,000. Now, why does that specific number matter? Because if you use a safe 4% withdrawal rate, which is the rule of thumb experts use for spending without running out of cash, that 95 grand gives you a grand total of $317 a month to spend in retirement. Imagine grinding away at a job for 40 straight years and your portfolio only kicks back $317 a month. Crazy, right?
Look, if staring at those benchmarks is giving you a knot in your stomach right now, just take a breath. The biggest takeaway here comes directly from our source material. If you're feeling behind, you're not the exception. You're literally in the same boat as everybody else. Most people are drastically underprepared. You are in very good company, and just recognizing where you actually stand is the crucial first step to turning it all around.
Which brings us to part 4, how to catch up. Actionable steps today.
Because seriously, the absolute worst thing you could do right now is look at all this data, feel totally hopeless, and just freeze. Don't do that. Here are 5 proven actionable steps to get you caught up. Rule 1. Always take your employer match in your 401k. It's literally free money, folks, a guaranteed 50 to 100% return on your cash. Rule 2. Use auto-escalation. Basically, you set your account to silently bump up your contributions by just 1% every year. You'll barely even notice it missing from your paycheck, but over time, that compounds into tens of thousands of dollars.
Building on that, let's hit Rule 3 for those of you who are a bit older. If you're over 50, the IRS actually lets you make what they call catch-up contributions. You can toss an extra $7,500 a year into your account on top of the normal limits. And jumping on that for just 15 years, that could add nearly $200,000 extra dollars to your retirement portfolio. No joke.
Rule 4 is absolutely crucial. Watch your fees. It is wild how tiny little percentages can mask massive losses. An actively managed fund charging a 0.75% fee might sound completely harmless, right? But put that next to a standard low-cost index fund charging just 0.03%, and that harmless active fee will secretly drain tens of thousands of dollars from your compounding growth over a 30-year span. You've got to keep those fees as close to zero as humanly possible.
And finally, Rule 5. The data is crystal clear on this. The people who win the retirement game aren't necessarily the smartest ones in the room, and they usually aren't the ones who started with the biggest bank accounts. Winning doesn't mean perfectly timing the stock market or stumbling into the next crypto boom. It just requires setting up an automated process today and staying stubbornly consistent. No panic selling when the news gets scary. Just automate it and leave it alone.
As we sit here watching this economic gap widen in real time, the path forward becomes pretty clear. The actual numbers don't lie, even if the headlines sometimes do. So the only real question left for you is this. Are you going to let those skewed average headlines fool you into complacency, or are you going to take control of your actual financial reality and start your automated process today? Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer. Go review those savings targets and take that first step today.